with the EFF hosting its National People's Assembly and the SACP also in Congress. For some analysis, I'm now joined by political analyst Professor Lesiba Teffo. Professor Teffo, appreciate your time. Thanks so much for speaking to us. I'd like to touch a little bit on the EFF and one of the conversations that we witnessed Julius Malema speaking about Mbuyiseni Ndlozi, I beg your pardon, and he seemed a little bit agitated. And this is one of the individuals who's purportedly expected to leave the EFF, and we know that a number of EFF leadership has left the EFF. What are your thoughts around this departure of EFF leadership, and where does this leave the EFF leadership, with particular focus on the fact that they are electing new leadership during the course of today?
Look, the spectre of Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is looming large. Much has been said from the beginning up to the end of the close of this conference. It would be there, and it would also be there even after the conference. But yesterday, I thought there could be a possibility to smoke a peace pipe. But when one takes into account the concluding line by the CIC, quoting Martin Luther King Jr., in the end, it will not be the actions of the enemies that we will remember, but it will be the silence of our friends. I thought that was an unfortunate statement. Fast forward, this morning I attended the briefing, and he spoke at length, but at one point he got extremely agitated when he was asked about Ndlozi. And the things that he said then made me believe that it is no longer possible for these two, at least, to smoke the peace pipe, and for these two to work together. I think the marriage is over, it's irretrievably broken down.
So going into this election where new leadership is elected, what is Julius Malema looking out for? Because these are his trusted lieutenants, if you will, if we take Lloyd Shivambu into context, and obviously a number of other leadership that have left him. What is he likely to look out for? What are his expectations of those that will be elected?
Well, he would hope that they would bring the intellectual capital that Shivambu and Ndlozi had. Remember, these two, to a large extent, shaped the policy and gave the party the gravitas it has, the treasure it has, the footprint, the national footprint it had. And their departure, and I think that's what is aching him further and his immediate lieutenants, is that they're seen more as intellectual gurus that shape this, and they're struggling to say, but we are not that hollow. We can also be as good as they are. Hence, he spent a lot of time talking about Marxism, Leninism, Fanon, Sankara, for almost 20-25 minutes yesterday. And I wasn't sure that the audience that he was talking to really did follow. Well, it was far above them. No doubt about it, it was far above them. With due respect to them, I think I even dared some to say, if you were to ask, Karl Marx, was he in Ndebele or was he in Botswana? So, by far the majority of the people on the ground here, with due respect to them. And I'm saying this precisely because I'm a professor of philosophy. I'm teaching and taught in this area for far too long. And it would take a minimum of 4 years just to begin to talk to them to understand what Marx was about and what the relevance thereof. That said, by the way, I heard even Solima Paila speak right now. We have gone beyond the age of ideology. For me, we are done with the dust and we'll never go back. It's an age of realism, the age of pragmatism. We're still talking about communism or socialism. You work with what works, informed by the material resources and existential experience of the people in your country and on the ground. That should guide you, that should inform you. And then whatever language or English you want to use, at the end of the day, if the system works for you, it works for the benefit of the people that you purport or you lead, so be it. You can't tell me China is, tell me what China it is, what China is today. Tell me what Russia is today, okay? Yeah, but yesterday you could compartmentalize them, but it's no longer that easy today.
Okay, and final thoughts around the EFF before we move to the SACP. What are the challenges that are likely to face this new leadership? What is it that's going to be top of agenda for them as they go into this new phase?
Messaging. The divisive, abrasive, belligerent language often used, it didn't help their cause and it won't help their cause going forward. I'm inviting them to make a very critical introspection. Where did we go wrong? Why did we go wrong? With that in mind, here is a blueprint that we are going to follow going forward. Share it with the people, right? And in a language that is don't be too complicated. You'll end up leading people. Only when you look back, there is nobody you are leading because you left them behind. But the archaic and anachronistic verbiage or rhetoric. Simple English language or indigenous African language can convey the message and make a difference for the EFF. And I just think let them be guided by the values that can undergird the Constitution, namely reconciliation, nation building, and social cohesion. People no longer want to call each other enemies, right? And yeah, if they can just find it within themselves that we can differ and we can disagree without being disagreeable, yes, they can rebuild the party whose decline has begun. And oftentimes, from my experience, when the voters vote with their feet, they don't often come back. Ask the ruling party and other liberation movements on the African continent. Once the voters vote with their feet, they seldom come back. It's not impossible, but they seldom come back.
Well, Professor Teffo, that's obviously something that we're going to continue to watch. But let's shift focus now and attack the SACP conversation, if you will. They have for the longest time continued to talk about the tripartite alliance and the reconfiguration of that tripartite alliance, and that if it doesn't happen, then they're going to go into the voting space. And that's one of those things that's come out, that they will contest the next elections. Let's talk about that. Let's also talk about some of those key aspects that have come out of this Congress.
I heard someone say to me, too much words full of passion but signifying nothing. I hear much of that. What is it that Soli is saying that I haven't heard in the past 20, 25 years? Some of the things that have been said by the current leadership was said when some of them were still either at primary, high school, or at university. It's a trite statement, right? Whose consequence I cannot vouch for. But all I know is that I heard already, even yesterday, and I said to some people, they have already begun to speak in folk tongue. It sounds very passionate, but I can tell you, they are the very ones who will be campaigning for the ANC. And but maybe I must also state this. Someone said to me, the more things change, the more they remain the same. Because there's somebody from down there, Nkandla, and who said, I'm forming my own party, but I'm not leaving the ANC. So he has dual membership. So he also has dual membership because he says, I'm going away with SACP to contest election even against the ANC, while at the same time, I'm a member of the SACP / ANC. What a contradiction in terms.
So you're drawing similarities, obviously, to... I'd imagine that you're talking about Jacob Zuma when you
Yes, I am. I'm talking about the MK party in particular. Maybe we leave the party. Let me go straight to JZ. JZ says, yes, I'm a member of MK, but I'm also a member of ANC, and I'm going to contest the ANC. And I hear Solima Paila say to me today that I am a member of the SACP and I'm also a member of the ANC, but I'm going to contest and compete against or with the ANC. That's the analogy I'm drawing. Tell me I'm wrong, and I'll eat my cap.
So what are the implications on the relationship of the SACP or the tripartite alliance following this public announcement?
In one line, it's just nothing but verbiage. And come the appropriate time, it will be Mapaila who will be campaigning for the ANC. Just check for me, for the benefit of others there, how many members are in the executive? I counted perhaps 12 or 14 in the executive, in the cabinet, as ministers or deputy ministers coming from the SACP. Are they going to leave their position because of this decision? Which is not new, because it was on the agenda for the past 25 years. Remember, it was in September 2007 when the SACP registered as a political party intending to go it alone. Today is 14 years. They're still with the ANC. They were so passionate because they felt that they could no longer work with Thabo Mbeki as the president. They wanted to go it alone. But when JZ won the election, they had reason to stay on. What if in 2026 there is another reason? All I'm saying to you, they will be campaigning for the ANC.
So let's talk about this tripartite alliance in practical terms, right? Who's a shot caller? What does it mean to the ANC? What does it mean to the alliance members, the SACP and COSATU? And obviously, the fact that they have
let's just go into the meaning of it.
They've continually said that we will pull out if there is no reconfiguration of the tripartite alliance, then we're going to go it alone to some extent. And obviously, the ANC has called their bluff.
How many times did they call them their bluff? And even now they're calling their bluff because they know what is going to happen. And I told you I'm no longer going to repeat that. But all I'm saying, by the way, this alliance has run its course. They were allied against who? Against apartheid. Once apartheid was removed, there was no basis for it. Hence, the perpetual tension that is there in the alliance, because its relevance has run its course. They should have gone their way. And that's why COSATU today is a shadow of its former self. It has shared a lot of support. How many people still think or consider it as worthwhile, a worthy union? Precisely because it lost its relevance. It has become a vehicle for accessing power by piggybacking on the ANC. And the same thing applies to the SACP. Whether they like it or not, they are piggybacking on the ANC, and they must just make peace with that on their own they don't have the figures. They don't have a mental and a psychological presence out there that would draw people to them. They don't have the programs. Neither is the ideology appealing, or is the language spoken. It's archaic and anachronistic with the age in which we live.
Now, if the SACP is going it alone and is going to contest in the elections, is this worrying the ANC is the first question. And the second question is, if they are unsuccessful in those elections, where to?
Look, for me, it's at a philosophical level that is problematic, that it's going to harm the ANC. But when it comes to the vote, that is not a big issue. The more they talk the language they do right now, they are doing reputational damage to the ANC and to the Brent Alliance. Let him keep talking like this. You are playing into the hands of the detractors or those who don't believe in the ANC. You are giving them reason and ammunition, certainly not to vote for the ANC. Keep talking the language you do, SACP, but you are damaging the brand ANC, because you are really justifying what people have been saying about the irrelevance of the alliance, and also perhaps the lack of proper service of the people by the ANC as the ANC. But lastly, there is something that I'm grappling with. There is quite a substantial number of people who think the GNU is going to work. And I'm one of those, by the way. right? I'm one of those. But Soli doesn't seem to see it that way. And I just wonder if someone can just sit and understand where he comes from. Maybe he has got good reasons, but for now, I think he's angry, he's a bit bitter, and there could be more to it that he cannot see. The mood out there in the country, the smaller benefits that have been derived in the past 5-6 months, everything seemed to be very encouraging, but Soli doesn't seem to see that. Ntatema Paila, find it within yourself, tell us what the problems are, and maybe you are right, and then convince us, then we can follow you. But we are at a stage as a society where we are guided by the values that undergird the Constitution, nation building, reconciliation, and social cohesion. The language that wants to divide us, that want to call other people enemies, does no longer resonate with the people of South Africa. Neither would I want to be associated with an organization in this country that wants to divide us. We come from a fractured past, and let that past be the past, and let's step the way forward.
Professor Lesiba Teffo, that's where we'll leave that conversation. Appreciate your expert analysis.